Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and call the January 4th, 2024 Historic Preservation Commission meeting to order. Can we have the roll, please?
Chairman Lane.
Here.
Commissioner Sibley.
Here.
Commissioner Fenster.
Here.
Commissioner Norton.
Here.
Commissioner Barnert.
Here.
Council Representative Pack. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have a quorum. First order of business is the approval of the December 7th minutes. Do any commissioners have any comments or corrections on the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion to approve the minutes from Commissioner Fenster.
Second.
And a second by Commissioner Sibley. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None? Okay, the minutes are approved. Let's see, report from the chair. I guess welcome our new council representative, Mayor Peck. The only other thing I have to make a comment about would be since our last meeting, we did have the zero ordinance, zero reading of the demolition and revision ordinance. I attended that council session along with Commissioner Barnert. Glenn gave a presentation that I think was well received by council, and I think the second reading, we can get into this in staff report, but the second reading will be coming up here, I think this month, right? Yeah, perfect. I'm sorry, yes, first reading, right. Yeah, thank you. That was the zero reading. Right. Okay, communications from our HPC staff liaison, which in this particular case will be Planning Director Glenn.
Sorry, I'm not Jennifer, but I try to be. So I'll do my best. Just a couple of updates. You're familiar with the appeal. The applicant wasn't able to make it. I forget what date that was originally scheduled for, so it's now been rescheduled to February 13th. And as Chairman Lane said, the HPC amendments are on first reading this Tuesday. So the 9th and second reading, if that goes well, will be on the 23rd. So yes, we'll get through in January, hopefully, with those amendments. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, do any of the commissioners have questions for staff? Yep, Commissioner Barnett.
On?
Yep.
Okay. Glenn, I know that we communicated before the new year, and I'm just curious now whether or not any progress has been made in the discussion with the Parks Department about the Kanemoto Tower of Compassion. And the reason I ask is just not other than the fact that I was interested in this before, is that the Longmont Symphony has decided, as part of their gala event this year in May, they're going to honor the Kanemoto family. And the Kanemotos have accepted. In fact, they're buying 3 tables for the gala on May 18th, which also is Historic Preservation Month. Right. And I know the timing is tough to get all this done with everybody, but I just was wondering what can be done to start, whether it's something you need to do, whether it's something that City Council needs to first ask you to do, or just how we're going to move forward on this, because time is kind of, it's not of the essence, but it would be nice if it could be done.
Yeah, well, I realize things catch up with you really quick. So I'm glad you brought that up. I'll double check with Jennifer. I don't know if I mean, just following the pattern like we did with the silo, we went to Parks and Rec and just gave them kind of an update. That was generated from a citizen. So we'll just do the same thing, but then we go to council and we basically ask, can we proceed as representative of the landowner, the council is. So they give us the okay, then we're kind of off and running. And then we come back to you with an ordinance. You make a recommendation, goes back to City Council. So potentially it could be done by May.
I guess I'm trying to figure out what chicken and egg, are we in a chicken and an egg situation? Or, is this something that you have to go to parks first before you go to council? Or does council say, go ahead and talk to parks and see what they think? I mean, it's,
Yeah. I don't think we need an okay. It's just kind of a, let them know what's happening. I don't know that we have to get them to agree to it. So I don't think that's gonna hold us
I mean,
up,
it's
if
just-
that's your concern.
well, I was just thinking of what happened with the Historic East Side Neighborhood Association, that Mayor, you're here, but you can speak for yourself, but the mayor specifically asked that the council take the action, which then started off the process. So I'm just wondering if that's what we need to ask the council to do. Since we've already voted to support it, that, we've done our share, so.
Right. Yeah, we
Right.
just have to get council to say, yes, go forward with it.
Yeah, we actually, I think you made that motion last meeting, right? Right, so it's been moved and voted on from us that we direct or ask staff to keep this moving, to take it to council and ask for direction in terms of, can we move forward with a landmark ordinance?
Can I ask for a clarification? Looking at
Hold on.
Sorry. Just a clarification. For your request for May, are we asking for a local landmark or the state and national register listing that we've asked to go to the state? Because I could provide some details. I don't know if the state register would be done by May. But because the next meeting is actually January 19th, and we don't have that on the agenda, I think, for SHPO.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the answer is that the process that we've asked for is the local landmark
Okay.
designation, right?
Okay.
Because that is something that, so we had Carl McWilliams here last session, and he's aware of, he's obviously very aware of the process with the
Yes,
state
yes.
and national, right?
Yeah.
And so even he mentioned that it would probably not be possible to get all the applications prepared for the state and national level in this time window that we have
Okay.
for this early meeting.
Okay.
So I think our focus in the immediate time frame is to ask council, can we get this local landmark process moving, and then as that goes, I guess it would be, presuming that the council says yes, then we could ask McWilliams to move forward with their bigger picture.
Okay.
Or we could make a part of,
Yeah.
the presentation and ask to council, can we,
Yeah.
the various levels, and have them come back and say, yeah, we're fine with all of them, or whatever, but get some direction.
That's perfect. I just wanted clarification because I saw it was local and state and national registers that were discussed last time. So I wanted to make sure I understood what your request was. Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Barnett?
Yes, and that, I would have answered that the same way. That was our request, and we understood that from the presentation, that the state one takes much longer.
Yeah.
It's, just to clarify, Commissioner Lane, the Chairman Lane, that the council doesn't need to have very much to proceed. They have our recommendation, and they're not going to make a decision other than to ask the staff, like they did last last meeting. They asked the staff to gather the evidence or the information that they can then take on for a decision. The gathering that evidence, as I understand, is going to parks and working with them, and then getting an okay as the landowner, and then putting together a actual proposal to later on, maybe February or March, put before the council, and then ask the council to take a decision on that. So the early decision is just a decision to instruct the staff to move forward. and gather the information.
Ultimately, the HPC, per the code, makes a recommendation on the ordinance. So are you saying we could just go to council and be done with it? Is that what you're describing?
Sorry.
So we're talking about the recommendation for landmark.
Yeah.
Okay, that has to be an ordinance?
Yes.
Okay, so before, the HPC has said, let's start the process.
Right.
Okay, the next step, as I understand it, in a perfect world, would be for the council and the staff to say, yes, not independent of the HPC, based on what HPC has said, for the council and the staff to proceed further with whatever action needs to be taken, so that council can then make a judgment, take a decision on it. They
Right.
can't do that until the staff then, subsequent to the request from the council, goes to Parks, works with Parks, develops an ordinance, whether that has to, I guess that, what you're saying is that has to come back to HPC, and then HPC acts, and then the council takes a final decision.
I think you got it.
Have I laid that out?
Yeah.
All right. So the first step is that council acts, if it chooses to instruct the staff to proceed.
Yep, and so that's how you understand it as well?
Yeah.
We just need to get there, I mean, rather than go through all this, we want council to be on board, basically. Right?
Yeah, the ordinance does say, as the owner has to, or else you do the petition, right?
Right.
That's the option. If the council says, no, we don't want to do it, then you go a petition route. You guys should have this memorized
Right.
after going over every sentence in the ordinance.
Correct. Okay. Any other questions or comments for staff? No? Okay. We'll move to public invited to be heard. I don't have anybody on the list, and I believe our audience is a presenter for later, so I'm going to assume that we have no public comment, and we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and move on to item 7, which is our annual business. I'm going to group a couple of these later on, but we'll start with, so every January meeting, we re-elect our positions and go through a number of sort of housekeeping components here for the year. So first is election of the chair. Do I have a motion?
I move to nominate Chairman Lane for chair again.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor to nominate Chairman Lane as the chair for 24 by Commissioner Norton, seconded by Commissioner Fenster. All those in favor? I thought about abstaining for a second, but no. Thank you. I'm happy to continue. Election of vice chair. We do need a new vice chair. Our vice chair in the past has been Commissioner Gayu. And so with that, if there's anyone that would like to volunteer, otherwise I have a motion in mind. Okay. I'm going to move that Commissioner Norton be nominated as our vice chair for 24. Okay, we have a motion on the floor for Commissioner Norton, motion by Chairman Lane, seconded by Commissioner Fenster for vice chair. All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? None. Now we have a new vice chair. Okay. Approval of meeting dates and times. So in the staff report, we do have a couple of conflicts with our sort of typical schedule. The first would be essentially removing February 10th as a meeting date because February 4th as the, yeah, thank you. I wrote that down wrong in my notes. February, is it the 1st? Yeah, it would be the 1st. So removing the February 1st, basically not having a meeting in February. February 1st is the Saving Places Conference. We have a HBC retreat on the 10th, so essentially not having a meeting in February. The other conflicts are really, well, I can tell you that the June 6th meeting, if we have it on the 6th, I won't be here. So the vice chair will actually need to lead a meeting.
On which date?
June 6th. July 11th, let's see, so our normal meeting would be on July 4th. Obviously, that doesn't work. So July 11th would be the sensible place for that to go. And there was a note in the staff report about September 5th being the week of Labor Day weekend, but it is the Thursday after. So I don't know if that's a conflict for anyone else. So, any, if there's no further comment, so I would move that our schedule essentially involve deleting the February meeting, moving the July meeting to the 11th. And really, other than that, it would remain the same. Okay, so motion from Chairman Lane, seconded by Commissioner Barnard. Is there any discussion, any further comment on that? No? Okay. All right, all those in favor? Say aye. Opposed? None. Okay, I'm going to group D and E together. It's the approval of meeting location and agenda posting locations. Our meeting location is here, and our agenda posting locations have not changed online. Are they posted physically anywhere?
Yeah, I believe 3 places
Yeah,
around
okay.
City Hall.
Yes, please. Okay, I have a motion to approve our meeting location and agenda posting locations as unchanged by Commissioner Barnard, seconded by Commissioner Norton. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. That motion carries. And then finally, approval of the bylaws. We've been through these a couple times, actually, over the course of this year. Do any commissioners have any comment or question on the bylaws? Yep. Commissioner Fenster.
We had at least one session where we rather thoroughly scrubbed them. That's my recollection. I didn't go back and look, but, so, at this time, I don't see anything that needs change.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Okay. The bylaws, as written in the staff report, have been moved for approval by Commissioner Fenster. Seconded by Commissioner Sibley. Yep, so let's have some discussion. Hold on, get your mic.
Friendly amendment that the date on the bottom should be the 4th day of January, not the 2nd day of February. And it should be 2024.
Uh-huh. Commissioner Fenster, do you accept that?
I do.
And Commissioner Sibley, do you second that? Okay.
I think it was just carried over from the previous year.
Nice, good catch. Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. Motion to approve the bylaws as written and amended, noted for the date changes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Those are approved. Thank you. Okay. That's the end of that sort of Housekeeping stuff. There are no items on our agenda for a public hearing, and so now we move to new business, which is an update on the Callahan House. Ms. Hastings. Welcome, and thank you for coming down here.
Great. Well, again, thank you for having me. My name is Brittany Hastings. I'm the Callahan House Manager, and I'm here to kind of give you a little overview about the restoration and preservation work that was done at Callahan House this year. So a little overview about what I'm here to chat about is the History Colorado State Historic Fund, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with, given your line of work as well. A little bit of a summary about our process going through that grant and the projects that were completed using that fund, cost summary, and then some details and some photos for you about the restoration and preservation that was done this year. So the History Colorado State Historical Fund is funded by casino gaming tax revenue annually collected by the state of Colorado. And those funds are distributed to historic preservation projects through a competitive grant process, which we underwent. And funds can go to projects including preservation planning, restoration, and construction work, which pertains to what was done at Callahan House this year, and also educational expenses and things like that. Eligibility to receive a grant from the fund is designated historic landmark, which Callahan House, of course, falls under. Or considered contributing in designated historic district or eligible for listing. But again, we are, as you know, a designated historic landmark, and that can be on a local, state, or national level. And this is given to public entities such as county, or in our case, city government, or nonprofit organizations. Applicants or owners must commit a cash match based on the percentage of the project costs, which the city of Longmont did do on our behalf, and that was the 25% cash match as a government organization. And then 50% would be for a profit-based organization or a non-government entity. So the grant summary, in August of 2021, Callahan House Advisory Board and staff, members of council and other city staff were also helpful in the process in applying for the grant, which was awarded to us in December of 2021. And we had then had 2 years to complete the projects, which were officially all completed in early December of 2023. So came in just under the radar in the 2-year project window there. The original grant amount funded by the State Historic Fund was $180,000, and then a 25% cash match coming from the city, from CIP funds in the amount of $60,000 for a total of $240,000 towards the projects. So 3 central projects were part of the scope of the work. And I'll give you kind of a brief overview here, and then we'll go through some details and a few photographs for you here in a moment. But the preservation of the ornate leaded glass windows, so all exterior windows at Callahan House that have leaded or beveled or stained glass were restored, including creation and an installation of storm windows for each of those windows. So a protective layer in efforts, obviously, towards preservation for those. Initially was going to be a type of glazing, but then they deemed that the storm windows would be the best way to protect the exquisite windows at Callahan House. Second part of the project was the historic concrete driveways that were installed at Callahan House in the 1904 to 1908 era, where the Callahans, made a lot of upgrades and expanded the property in the house. And those actually have original drainage schematics designed by T.M. Callahan. So those were in need of quite a bit of repair, and we were able to do that as part of the scope of this project. The third aspect, and probably the one that is most noticeable for the public aesthetically, is the exterior woodwork restoration and repainting. So they did a historic paint analysis to figure out what the colors were of Callahan House in the early 1900s during the around 1906 to 1904 to 1908 era, and figured out what the colors were at that time, and we were able to restore the house to its heyday with those colors, which is really cool to see on the outside. And then also lead paint remediation, which is not surprising for a project like this, but certainly a key factor in getting that restored as well. Cost summary for the project. As I mentioned, the fund and with the cash match from the city, budgeted was $240,000 for the project. Upon completion, it came in at just over $208,000. So always good to see things come in under budget, of course. $32,000 under budget almost. So the city was able to get about $8,000 of that back and use $1,000 of that for some gutter repair that was also needed. Restoration project that was needed and was able to become part of the scope of this project. And you can kind of see here a little bit of a breakdown about what was spent where. Part of the window project was the very iconic rounded glass in the library, which is also beveled and leaded glass. And that was a pretty specific part of the project. $5,000 going towards that. 18 for the, it says here protective glazing, but that ended up being the storm windows. 7,000 for the paint analysis, and then the large chunk, 126,000 for the woodwork and restoration on the exterior, and then 50 for the driveway. So here's a few detailed images for you about the window preservation. Pictured here on the right is the library window that I had mentioned, which I said is a really iconic part of Callahan House with the rounded glass. This is what faced out to the south garden and the fountain and whatnot. And on the left here is a previous shot of the library window. So it was covered in plexiglass, which had really yellowed over time and was not very appealing to look at. Was protective enough, but not great to look at. So the plexiglass was removed, and the storm windows were created for every window that has the leaded glass. And those were installed. And so you can see here in this image, the darker green there is the storm window. And then the wood framing for the window was restored and painted to match the rest of the exterior as well. Additionally, on the library window, the panes here were bowing out and were in major need of restoration. Those were in pretty bad shape, and luckily that was a big chunk of the project was to get those back in good condition. And so these images here are what the windows look like now with the storm windows. So crystal clear, beautiful to see in and out, and we get these kind of lovely prisms in the afternoon that come through as well. So very happy to see that, and just to see those windows kind of restored to their original glory there. And the driveway restoration. So on the left, you can see the state that many parts of the driveway were in. Previous to the restoration, there was a lot of failed concrete and damage, a lot of water running underneath the concrete in the rain or when irrigation was used. So that was in need of restoration. The slower image here, this entire slab was redone. And the company that we used, Empire, who does historic restoration, was able to maintain the original aesthetics of that, which was really great. And then this image on the right here, you can see here, this is a re-poured section, and this is an original section here. So they did a really good job matching the original drainage schematics and the original aesthetics there. And then the final piece was the exterior woodwork and the repainting. So this is the original. You can see a lot of damage in the original woodwork, and these were the previous colors and paint peeling and whatnot. So this is Callahan House now. These are the original colors, like I mentioned, from the 1906 era, or early 1900s era. And the woodwork has all been restored and lead paint removed, and it's really beautiful. So if you haven't had a chance to come by and see, I encourage you to do that. And in terms of the public coming to view, so most of this project the work on this project was completed in August of this year, and Callahan was closed to public events for all of August to get that work completed. The only outlier was the library window that I mentioned, so you can see that here. We just got that reinstalled on December 4th, and we had a open house, holiday open house scheduled for December 7th. So big shout out to Scott Yoho and the marketing team for getting us I had drafted a news release several months ago in hopes that we would be sending it out before the Art Walk open house in early September. But of course, some things got delayed, as will happen with these projects. So yeah, we got the news release out very quickly, just a couple of days before the open house, and it was picked up by the Longmont Times Call, the Longmont Leader, and the Boulder Daily Camera, and we had over 400 people come for the holiday open house, which is, as I'm told, one of our biggest ever. So that was great. People were really excited to come check out the finished project, and then we also hosted an additional couple of open houses on December 13th and December 20th this last year. So a little bit of a visitation summary for you of Callahan House since we've finished out 2023. We saw 3,604 visitors in 2023, which comes in just under the mark of 2022, but keeping in mind that we were closed for August, we probably would have had another 400 to 500 visitors that month. And 939 of those visitors came just in December, so about a quarter of our visitation in 2023 happened in December, which is when all the grant work was completed. So we like to see that everybody's seeing the house under those conditions. Yeah, and that's what I've got for you. Thank you so much for hosting me, and I don't know if anybody has any questions, but we're also happy to have you all come tour Callahan House whenever you're able.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank
It's
you.
really exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Okay. Commissioner Barnett. Whoop, sorry.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I misheard that, okay. Well, go ahead and do that again. Yep. Commissioner Fenster.
Do you have a a protocol for advertising? In other words, if we're talking about either of the two local papers, are there occasions when you advertise your hours and features, et cetera?
Yes, we do a lot of advertising through the city, of course, because we are an event venue often. That's how the city utilizes the space. We do regular advertising through the city and occasionally through the local papers. In 2024, part of my intention is to open up the house for more community programming events. So I think we would advertise for those more specifically and potentially through local papers, but certainly through the resources that the city has as well.
And would any of that be guided?
Guided tours. I'm not sure what we've done historically about that in the past, other than the Third Avenue walking tours that are done through the museum. So the beginning of those do come through Callahan House, and we guide the first like 10 or 15 minutes of that. And right now, I've been offering guided tours just on a basis. If anybody reaches out and is interested, then we'd be certainly happy to show them the house. And then that's in addition to our roughly quarterly open houses where all of our board members are present and guiding folks throughout the house as well. So we don't have a regular like daily tours program. It's basically by appointment and then our open houses, but we're always happy to have people come through if they wish to.
I'm just wondering whether it would be worthwhile on at least some occasions, maybe 1 or 2 a year, maybe 3 or 4 a year, to advertise guided tours that would be overseen by an architect or an historic preservation individual.
I think that would be great. Like I mentioned, we have the quarterly open houses where we provide information about the history of the Callahans and the house as well. But I do find that people are often very interested in the architecture and those aspects, which are part of the information that we provide as staff and board. But I think it would be lovely if someone who had, some interesting background information about the more specifics of the architecture and the history wanted to come in and join in on those. I think that'd be lovely. So, thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else? No? I was a little bit curious. Do you know how many windows you had in that house that had to get restored?
Can think through and count on my fingers. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but just about every window at Callahan House has leaded and or beveled glass or stained glass, including like the upstairs window of the auto house, and whatnot. So they all, anything that had leaded, beveled, or stained glass got a storm window.
Right.
So, yeah, have to go through and count 15 or so, something
Yeah.
along those lines.
And that cost also included restoration of the window if it was in disrepair or what have you?
Yes, yeah, of the glass panels themselves, and then the framework and whatnot was part of the exterior woodwork restoration. But both elements were part of the scope of the project.
Great, yeah, looks great.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Yeah. Thank you very much for coming down here. It's
Thank you for
exciting to
having
see
me.
something like this happen and.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
we
thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much.
Okay. Our last item of business here tonight would be the retreat agenda. So the retreat again is scheduled for the 10th of February. Glenn, did you have anything in particular, or is this just an open discussion?
The one thing that we would like to do is bring in the consultant and talk about the survey plan. So that's really the only thing we have as far as a potential agenda item. But we'd love to hear, if you'd like other things. So if there's anything we need to prepare for. Part of that's going to be, we do have our GIS guy basically identifying all the surveys we have in the community. So you can kind of see what's been surveyed, what hasn't. And then we'll hopefully have an opportunity for the consultant to have looked into it a little bit and have kind of their ideas, but certainly bounce them off you and get input on it as well.
Okay. Great. If anybody has, any commissioners have something they like to? Commissioner Sibley. Oh, I thought you were looking, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were giving me. Oh. Okay.
You turned my light on.
Oh, boy. All right.
I did want to say something.
Okay, perfect. Commissioner.
Yeah, Glenn, this will be my second retreat, and I thought the last one was terrific, even though some people don't like the library. I thought it was great. And thank you for bringing snacks. The big man like me, needs snacks. What I think you did something like this last time, but what I would find helpful after the time I've been on the commission now is if we had some kind of a spreadsheet which laid out all the projects that we've talked about in the last couple of years, and at least get some idea from the staff where they are on it, and whether they see this as progressing during the year, and then get feedback have a discussion, feedback from the commission members on it. So you can get our feedback on things we'd like to see move, or things that we're okay if we don't do anything on, or whatever. But I just think it would be helpful to have that. And I also think it would be helpful if every quarter or so we just kind of updated that spreadsheet.
Sure. We'll go back in the back minutes. I'm not sure. The only thing I was focused in is code amendments. So I don't know if there's other things, but one thing I did think that is kind of critical that I think came up in our last retreat was a notification to folks. Anybody who owns a landmark, just to remind them that here's the advantages, here's what you have to do, here's where HBC is involved. So I thought about that as we adopt new requirements for demolition, that maybe we expand that to anything that meets that 50-year-old criteria within the original town site. that we also include some kind of notification to those folks as well. So that's one thing I think should be on our to-do list for the next year.
If you do that,
Hold on.
excuse me.
All right, Commissioner Fenster.
If you do that, are you going to need to run it by council or someone else before you issue it?
I don't think so. No, it's just basically saying, here's the code, and this is what it says, and this is what it means.
Okay.
So, no, that would be just our administrative thing. Might have to upgrade our postage budget, but I think we can
Unless you
figure
bought
that out
forever stamps before the
before
year
they go
turned.
up. Yeah,
I don't know,
thank you.
I
That's a
bought my
good
roll
idea.
100 on the 31st, just to save the $3. The other thing that we have talked about, and I've got a couple of notes here, and was, a little bit of just encouragement, right, to folks, letting people know that if they've got if they've got a landmark property, or if they're considering applying for landmark status, that there is funding available, right, through the state for work on their homes, right? So they could process tax, that's one of the things we do is process, those applications for tax credit, right? And so I think if folks, I'm not sure everybody understands that if they do some work and it meets these requirements, that they can actually apply to the state for effectively some form of reimbursement, right?
Right.
Which sort of helps to offset the notion that owning a historic home is, inherently more expensive, which I think is also a narrative out there.
Right, and we also locally have incentives. We can waive portions of the building permit if one's required. There's a number of fees we can reduce.
So just
As
even
well.
some, again, outreach to people to let
There's
them
carrots,
know, right?
yeah.
Yeah, that there are carrots out there. Commissioner Barnett, did you have? Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Fenster?
Yeah, have we ever given some thought to having some kind of a convocation of historic property owners? Maybe with a program and presentation?
I'm not familiar if we've ever considered that.
Yeah. That is done in some communities I'm aware of. Sometimes to get criticism, critiquing, and sometimes to have actually formal presentations from experts, whether they're community experts or national experts.
I think that's a reasonable thing to discuss during the retreat.
Yeah, yeah.
Commissioner Barnett?
I mean, I'm going to get the words wrong, but I know that we've talked about this from time to time, and we did talk about it at our last retreat, some kind of a brochure or some kind of where we looked at some of the other communities, and I don't remember exactly what it was for, but it was some way of putting, you know what I'm talking about, Glenn? Okay.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that would probably be in line with a mailing. Not that we'd only use it in a mailing, but it would certainly help kind of describe the program and what it means.
Right, but we looked at some other communities. I think the Louisville one was the one that jumps out at me as,
We looked at plans, historic preservation plans, which include Louisville. I remember
yeah,
that.
I'll go back and I'll check my notes. I have notes from this, and I'll pass them on to you.
Yeah,
But I think there are other projects like that that we've kind of started, and they just, other things have gotten in the way. And the retreat's a good time to kind of go over all of them. But
yeah,
I'll go over my notes and send them to you.
okay.
Yep, and I just pulled up the sort of packet from that retreat and then the minutes again. so I could remember what happened, which are very detailed. And we had a lot of discussion about that outreach. I think we ought to put that back on the agenda for this retreat and just talk about these sort of things again. And I was excited to see that in the number of things that we had there, in the outreach discussion summary, one of them actually did get accomplished, which was the Tower of Compassion, moving forward. So it's always nice when you look back and see at least something that got done from a list of we should do these, right? But I think we can talk some more about that and just refer back to some of the discussion we've had before. I'm very excited that you put the cultural resource surveys on there. I'd like to expand that into a continuing discussion of its place in eventually a preservation plan. Right? I want to keep that's an end goal. It might be worth just having, I think if Commissioner Jacoby were here, I don't want to 100% speak for him, but I'm going to guess that he would want us to have a discussion of our progress on the conservation overlay and where we are with that in there somewhere. So I would at least be prepared for that.
Oh, boy.
And that's about all I had from the last time. Okay, any other commissioners or comments? No? No? Oh, okay. Okay, Commissioner Norton.
I feel like over the last couple of retreats, in some of our meetings, we've brought up the idea of design guidelines, but we've always needed the preservation plan, we've needed the code updated, and so they haven't risen to be a priority. I wonder if thinking about developing design guidelines is something we want to reintroduce at the retreat, or perhaps that's part of the preservation plan, or that might be something we talk about in terms of the scope with a consultant.
I mean, something that basically puts a little bit more actionable design elements to, like, the Secretary of Interior's recommendations.
Yeah, so that, and I think you probably work more often with design guidelines than I do directly, but something that gives the average citizen in these different historic districts or just in the city of Longmont, guidelines about what is appropriate to fit in with their neighborhood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Right. Yeah, the ordinance talks about when you adopt a new district, a local district, then there's the design guidelines. But overall, no,
I
the
know.
ordinance doesn't really speak to that, but it would be very helpful, right? When we get somebody coming before you that wants to, remove their windows and replace them or something.
Right, and I think some of those preservation plans that we thought were the most successful, I think included at least some elements of design
Yeah.
guidelines, if not more complete design guidelines.
Right.
I would tend to agree. I think would be a really important part of a preservation plan, but probably hard to do floating on its own, right? Okay, any other items that anyone would like to throw out there for retreat agenda discussion? No? All right, so seems like that's still enough to have a good discussion about. All right. Okay, well, then that moves us to any further comments from HPC commissioners. Anyone have anything you'd like to throw out there? No? Okay. Any comments from our new council representative, Mayor Pack? No? There you go.
Yep, I just want to thank you for allowing me to sit in on these meetings. And I'm really impressed with the passion that you have for the history of Longmont and what you put into it. And that's shown by you keep reapplying so to be on this board, so you have historic knowledge. I do want to ask about the retreat. What time is it usually? Is it an all-day retreat?
1 to 4.
1 to 4,
We do an
okay.
afternoon. Yeah, and I just realized it conflicts with council retreat, I believe.
Well, okay. I don't know what to say about that, other than, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know, I guess that's a question for staff, if there's, I don't know, at this point, if we can make any adjustments to date or time.
I think we have time to do that. Yeah, I think we set the 10th, and I'm pretty sure I just saw council's retreat is the 9th and 10th. Are,
I'm pretty sure that's correct. I'm not sure we're locked into hours.
okay,
So let me run that by Harold and the rest of the council and see if they're locked into that date first. Because you said yours a while ago.
we can figure it
Either
out.
way, yeah.
We're,
I think at this point, it probably, as long as we have it, we'd want it to be in February for sure, right? We don't want to
yeah,
push it out any further than that, because we're trying to
right,
really set the tone for the rest of the year, so.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess if anything were to change, I mean, we certainly could deal with a straw poll via email or something like that. If
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Well,
Same place.
It may be
right.
the same place.
Yeah, I
the
don't know where
museum.
Jennifer was looking. Was it, yeah,
The museum is what we booked, actually.
I'm glad to know that, so,
That's where it was last year, your retreat.
yes. So, yeah, we'll have to figure this out.
Yeah.
Maybe I could go vote.
Maria's got an update. Yes, 17th? Okay, we got one vote for the 17th.
So that's a long weekend for the school district.
Oh, that's President's Day, right?
Yeah, that might only affect me, I don't know. Yeah, I've got just, I have nothing concrete. If that's the day it has to be, then that's the day.
well, again, I guess maybe if you want to look into it and then throw out a email,
Okay. All right,
we can adjust if need be.
all right.
Okay. It would be nice to have everyone here, so. Yeah, yeah. Okay, fair enough, thank you. Okay, well, that takes care of everything we have on our agenda for this evening. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Norton and seconded by Commissioner Fenster. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, everybody.
Everybody?